Good day and welcome back to Max Nafe Horsemanship. Glad you could join me today. I want to talk about a message I just got. Kind of, well, it goes along with the things I've said before and my mentality of training, and that is, well, before I tell you about the message, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my mentality towards training, why I do some of the things I do. I'm not going to go into great detail. That would take way too long. And I'm going to have to back up a little bit to, well, last summer when I had a horse for sale too. I'll get to all of that. First off, we're going to start with my way of training. Now, I like to be rather, well, I think the right word would be very thorough. I like to do as much as possible so that by the time you do get on the horse and ride the horse for the very first time, it already knows how to be ridden. You just haven't ridden it yet, but it knows all of the cues. So when you get on the horse, you're not asking anything that horse doesn't already know. Now that's a safety issue because, you know, and I've explained this before, is how it works, is that if you're not asking new things, and well, even the position, being up in the saddle, you're up higher, that's new to the horse. But I also ask the horse to do things while standing up on a mounting block or up on a stack of pallets or a trailer fender, all kinds of things like that. So they actually get used to me being at a different elevation. They've had the saddle on a few times, things like that. So when I actually get onto that horse, it's not a shock to it. It's not a whole bunch of new stuff all at once. Now that is a safety issue for you because it's far less likely the horse is going to freak out. Well, there's kind of two parts to that. If the horse isn't freaking out, it's learning. If the horse gets to the point of freaking out, it's not learning, and it can be quite dangerous. And that's why I try to be as thorough as possible before I ever get on the horse. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people don't do things that way, and they try teaching an awful lot of things from the saddle. And, well, in my opinion, that's kind of risky to be doing that. And it's not as effective, certainly not as safe. And you know what I'm like about that stuff. So, you know, a lot of people would consider a horse like that I've just got on and started riding to be a pretty green horse. And, well, honestly, yeah, they are. And there is an old saying that green on green equals black and blue, so don't put a novice or a beginner rider on a green horse. It will not end well. And in most cases, that probably is true. With that one I had, maybe not. Because I ended up selling them to a couple that, well, one of them was basically a beginner, the other was a novice, and they had a couple kids that had never been on a horse in their life. And they never had a problem with them. Anyhow, to continue with the story, well, as many of you will know that have been following for a while, watching my videos, last summer I had a horse for sale, and I did in fact sell him. And there were a number of people that did come out, and one of them actually came out and, well, because of the mentality of, that's a green horse, they actually decided not to buy him. And they thought older, more experienced horse would be the way to go. So that's what they did. And apparently they actually bought two of them. Now this goes back to the message that I just got today, is they wanted to know if Clint was still for sale. Well, no, sorry. I probably could have sold him 5 times over. But they wanted to know if he was still for sale because these other two much more experienced horses, well, apparently they didn't work out so well. And they decided that maybe a green, well-trained horse was the better way to go. And, well, so that's kind of the whole story. And you can take it as you want. You know, if you're training your own horse, being thorough before you get on the horse and teaching it as much as possible can make a huge difference. And, well, if you're in the market for a horse, maybe this is some advice that you could, you know, take to heart, is just because the horse is a little older and a little more experienced doesn't necessarily mean it's a better horse. Because a lot of times the training that it has had, you know, can really make a huge difference. Now, an older, more experienced horse, quite often, yes, good idea. But that's not the only parameter. It has to be well trained as well. If it's been well trained and it's got lots of experience, yeah, probably a pretty darn good horse to be buying, regardless of what you're trying to do. Even if it's really up there in years, it may still, depending on what you're doing, if you use like a leisurely little trail ride at a walk, that horse might have quite a few years left in it. So, a lot of people get really discouraged by older horses. The horses in their teens are quite often referred to as seniors. I've never understood that one because a lot of horses don't really get good until that age. I think a lot of the horses that are out there are best when they're in excess of 10 years old. So a lot of people still have this notion in their mind that it's got to be 6 years old or younger before it's, oh, I need a young horse that I can have for years and years and years. Well, if you get a young horse, you just may end up with a lot of problems. But then again, like I said, the training. So I guess that's what this whole story is all about. It's they came to the conclusion that an older, experienced horse was not as good as a well-trained green horse. And they wanted to buy the horse that, unfortunately, I had already sold. If I had a few more of them, I probably could have sold them too. But just something I wanted to share with you. It kind of indicates my mentality about training, how doing a thorough job of training can accomplish an awful lot. And even with a green horse, like I said, currently being ridden by beginners, novices, and people that have never even been on a horse. So, is a green horse really always all that bad? Not if it's been thoroughly trained. And that's something that you should be aware of, whether you're doing the training or if you're looking to buy a horse. Look at how well it behaves and forget about how old it is and how much experience it has, because that might not be near as important. If it's got experience and age and good training, well, then you're really looking at something good. But in the meantime, don't be fooled by the stereotypes. People say that you should have this, that, or the other thing. Sometimes those things aren't exactly what you really need. Keep your eyes open and pay attention to what's in front of you. Maybe there's always a chance you might be overlooking exactly what you need. Have a good day.